We're calling this version of it Arctic field ecology because, as I say, it transitions occasionally between topics. But this year we'll be teaching it in the north. The dates for the course are 24th July to 7th August, arriving on the 24th, leaving on the 7th. I'm the instructor here at UTM. There's my contact information. And again, you're most welcome to contact me for more information. Okay, just a couple of bits of information about myself, who I am. I'm a plant ecologist. What I actually study is invasions and plant herbivore interactions. I've worked in Churchill, where this course is offered periodically since 1984. I've also worked in Western Hudson Bay, Gamaski Island, Bylot Island, and Southampton Island in the Arctic Archipelago. And on invasions and other topics, I've worked all through Southern Ontario as well. Let's see. So this course is going to be offered in the north at a site I'm very familiar with, Churchill, Manitoba. It's the red dot on the map there, specifically at the Churchill Northern Study Center. And there's their address. It's a great place to offer a field course. Here it is. It's a really nice new field center. It's about 12 or 13 years old at this point. It's our base of operations. We have lab space there. It's also where we eat. There's a cafeteria, and there's also shared dormitory space, which is where we're going to be staying. So that's our home base. It's about 25 kilometers out of the town of Churchill, Manitoba. Churchill's a small place. It's got about 900 residents. But actually, it's fairly well equipped again for this kind of course. There is an airport. There's a rail connection that I'll say more about in a minute. There is a small local town that has amenities. So it's got grocery store, hardware store, liquor store, souvenir shops, restaurants. Helpfully, it's got a hospital, which is pretty unusual at that kind of latitude. It's a grain port. You can see the grain elevator in the background there, which means it has a rail connection to the outside world. And it's got a fairly long history for a northern town. It's been a Hudson Bay Company post since 1717. Getting to Churchill, whoops.
Sorry, I'm checking so they can see your presentation.
Oh, okay. You weren't seeing it? Oh, stick around after. Okay. Getting to Churchill is your first challenge. There's no road access to the town. In fact, the nearest road ends about 250 kilometers away. You normally fly to Churchill from Winnipeg, and there's several carriers that do this. The main one that we usually use is Comair International. It's the only one with regular flights. The usual route is you fly from Toronto to Winnipeg on whatever carrier you want, and then from Winnipeg to Churchill on Comair. One little warning there, Comair is not on aggregators like Travelocity or anything like that. It's too small and eccentric. So you actually have to book a ticket in Comair directly. You may see it on something like Travelocity, but it won't actually book a ticket for you. There are flights most days during the summer, but they do tend to fill up. So if you're actually in the course, it's good to book early. It's possible some flights might go through Rankin Inlet and Nunavut and turn around, depending on the schedules they're using this year, which is an okay way of doing it. The other way to get to Churchill is take a passenger train from Winnipeg. Via Rail does run passenger trains up there. It's a great trip, and I'll say more about it in a minute. But it's also a fairly major undertaking. It's a multi-day trip. So it actually takes you, I think, 50 odd hours over 3 days to get to Churchill. Every year we've got students who do it, and I recommend it, but it is a less efficient way of making the trip. So why do we go there? Well, the reason is it's a great place for a northern field course. Churchill is right at the edge of the tundra boreal boundary. So the town itself is north of the tree line, but not very far north. The study center is sort of at an interface between boreal and tundra habitats, which means that we get a lot of the diversity that we get in tundra sites, but also a lot of the diversity we get in boreal sites. So for a tundra site, it's actually a very high diversity area. But it really is a good tundra site. It's a continuous permafrost. Good tundra, tree line, and boreal forest are all accessible from the CNSC. We should have a vehicle while we're there, so we'll do a fair bit of local travel. We also can visit coastal habitats along Hudson Bay itself and along the Churchill River estuary. It's a very wet landscape. There are a lot of wetlands, many lakes, a number of small streams as well. So we try to visit all of these kinds of sites during the course. I'm a plant ecologist, so I'll just say a few words about the plants. If you have trouble with your tree identification, it's a great place to go because there only are 4 trees: black spruce, white spruce, tamarack, and actually balsam poplar. These are some really ancient white spruce out in the tundra. It's what's called a Krumholtz tree. So this tree is many hundreds, possibly thousands of years old. Not the little upright branches, but the mat of vegetation down at the bottom that hides under the snow level in winter. The tundra is mostly heath or lichen dominated and dry areas, which is what we're looking at here. But there are a lot of peatland and sedge sites as well. For wildlife, it's a really good place to go. There's a diverse bird community, although we go late enough in the year that a lot of birds are starting to migrate. It's a breeding area for lots of Arctic and subarctic birds like snow geese, ptarmigan, parasitic jaegers, shorebirds, a variety of songbirds. These are all things you got a pretty good chance of seeing during the course. It's also famous for Arctic mammals, including beluga whales. We see caribou occasionally, Arctic and red foxes, and polar bears, especially in August. Churchill's known for polar bears. It's called the polar bear capital of the world. And I'll say right now, this is not a wildlife tour. I do not guarantee you see any of these things. However, we usually do. The one thing I do guarantee is belugas. There are thousands of them in the river in late summer. If there are no belugas there, something is really wrong. Every year we have seen polar bears. We don't see Arctic foxes every year. Caribou, if we're lucky, because when they wander into town, somebody eats them. Okay. Churchill's a really historically interesting site if you're interested in that kind of thing. It's been a contact point for hundreds of years between Cree, Dene, Inuit, Métis, and Europeans. All of these groups are still present in the town. Even though it's a town of 900 people, it's quite culturally diverse. There actually are a couple of excellent local museums that document Native peoples' local history, and actually especially Inuit art. There's a small but spectacular art museum there. Right across the river from the town of Churchill is the 18th century Hudson Bay Company fort, Prince of Wales Fort. It's an incredibly well-preserved 18th century fortress. We don't include it officially as part of the course, but we make time for people who want to go across it. We'll have a free day and you can actually visit if you want. It's an additional cost, but it's not very much money, relatively speaking. It's about $100 to get a combined whale and fort tour across the river. And I highly recommend it. So that's a bit of the background of the course. So let's talk about the course content. This is a regular half course. It's listed in the calendar as a half credit course. But it's crammed into 2 weeks. So you don't have a lot of spare time. The usual pattern is that we do local field trips most days, usually in the morning or afternoon. So we try to visit as many field sites, see as much wildlife, see as much plant life as we can. I do give lectures in the course. So most evenings you'll get a lecture from either me or from one of the guest lecturers that we managed to round up. The Northern Study Center is an active research station. So every year what we do is we grab whoever's passing through and bribe them with beer or something to give a lecture. So depending on who's there, you may get additional lectures on polar bears, seals, caribou, whoever happens to be passing through the site at the time. You do a mini project during the course. You get about 3 days to collect data for a project, and then about 2 or 3 days to analyze it and present the results to the class. One of the main things we do in the first week of the course is help you design a project. We try to familiarize yourself with local biology, local natural history. And one of the goals of that is so that by the middle of the course, you're confident enough to suggest a project you'll be able to work on. So we guide you with that. It is a course, there is evaluation. You get a couple of quizzes during the course, which are largely based on well, the things we've been teaching you, plus identification of local plants and animals. You'll do a couple of presentations during the course, a presentation where you outline your research proposal and your preliminary results. And finally, after the end of the project, there will be a final report due about a month after the course. So we will get you to write up your project as a formal lab report, essentially, and submit it after the course. We do it after the course because it's only a 2-week period. So we want you to have enough time to do a good job actually analyzing the data and writing it up. It's a fairly hospitable place in late summer by northern standards. It's usually pretty nice in July and August. And by nice, I mean average daily temperatures are usually around 12 degrees, which is actually a pretty comfortable temperature to be working in the field. But it is incredibly variable. I've seen it get down to 0 in July, and we've had days that have been over 30 degrees. You have to be really ready for anything when you come up. So you have to be ready for cold temperatures and hot temperatures. One thing you won't get is snow. It's never snowed on record on July and August, but it has gotten down to pretty cool temperatures. It's a rainy environment. We probably will get a couple of rain days. Be prepared for that. Lots of coastal fog, which is what you're looking at here. In a couple of years lately, we've had a lot of smoke from forest fires, although actually it's been worse apparently at the GTA than up there. I'll also just mention that it gets a lot of biting flies, mosquitoes, black flies, deer flies. You haven't seen mosquitoes like we've seen in the Hudson Bay lowland. So it's good to come prepared. Usually we tell people to bring up insect repellent. You may want to bring a head net. I've been bitten so often, I don't even notice them anymore. So I'm not actually that good for advice. But we do give you information about how you should prepare yourself. Just a couple of words about safety. And one thing that's a bit different about this course is one of the nice things about the course and also one of the challenges is this really is a high bear area. We see polar bears regularly during late July and August. They really are dangerous. So you get a lot of supervision during the course. I mean, I've worked up there for off and on for more than 40 years now. Your TAs all have northern experience. We actually carry shotguns everywhere, which is a little unusual for a lab. It does help keep, things in order. So we actually have the experience and the guidance to keep you safe, but it means you can't go out by yourself. You can't go out at night. You can't go out unsupervised. I mean, part of our job is to make sure that you can do the course materials and do the project in safety. Just as an illustration, these 3 guys, well, actually 1 female and 2 cubs, wandered out from me a couple of years ago when I was giving a lecture on annual plants and just popped up on the ridge right behind me. Really disrupted the course, very rude of them. You will get other opportunities. Again, we'll spend at least a day in Churchill proper, so you'll get at least 1 free day actually in town. So you can visit museums, do souvenir shopping, whatever. I mentioned that there are local tours available. I really recommend visiting the fort. You could also go kayaking in the river. There are whale tours. There are a number of things you can do, and they're excellent. Again, these belugas are just ones that I photographed on a whale tour a couple of years ago. Now, the one catch with the course is cost. This is an expensive course, and frankly, there's no real way for us to get around that. The course costs this year are going to be $1,551. What that gets you is 2 weeks of room and board at the Northern Studies Center. So all meals are paid for, your room is paid for. Again, it's shared accommodation. So it's expensive, but actually by Arctic standards, it's not a bad deal. You also will have to pay the regular half course fee you pay for any course that you take. You'll be responsible for your own transportation. Last year it was about $550 to Winnipeg and about $1,770 to Churchill. You can often get deals on the trip to Winnipeg. I've seen flights in recent years as low as I think like $104. The expensive leg is the leg from Winnipeg to Churchill. I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. Alternatively, you can take the train fare from Churchill. The reason that we make people book their own tickets is because there are a number of different ways that people can potentially cut costs or make their own arrangements. So we want to give you the freedom to actually figure out what is the most inexpensive and practical way for you to get there. There are bursaries available, so there is some financial support from the Experiential Learning Office for eligible U of T students. You can actually apply for a bursary. They give you up to $500 for students who can demonstrate financial need. In the past, they've been reasonably generous about that. Honestly, if you think you might qualify, you should apply. They also will consider higher cases and costs in cases of significant need. So if you could make the case that you really can't take the course without assistance, you may be able to get them to give you more funding. But there are a few other ways you can cut costs. I already mentioned you can often get cheap flights to Winnipeg. The expensive part is the Winnipeg to Churchill run. But there's several tricks you can use. The first thing is that Calm Air inexplicably accepts Air Canada frequent flyer miles and air miles at par. So they don't give out air miles, but they will accept Air Canada miles. So if you have any, you can use them. Even more inexplicably, they consider Churchill to be a local flight. So if you have any air miles at all, it's actually one of the best deals you can get on Air Canada air miles. I flew my whole family up for free a few years ago. There also are student fares if you're under 24. I understand it's a substantial saving. They won't tell me what they are because I can't convince them I'm under 24. You have to actually contact them directly and ask for what they've got. One tip, and I'll give you more advice for the students who are enrolled in the course, but when you book flares, it's good to make sure your ticket is as flexible as possible. In particular, lots of time on the southbound trip. Flights in the north are often delayed substantially. It's actually pretty common to be several hours late coming back from Churchill. So you want to actually have enough time between your tickets. Because you have to book two separate tickets, they won't rebook you on another one if you miss the Air Canada flight. So you have to make sure there's enough time between your flight for connections. Another thing you can do is you can actually save about $1,000 by taking the train from Winnipeg to Churchill. I mentioned it's a major time commitment. It's 44 hours over 3 days, but every year we get students who do it. You can get an overnight berth, but it costs more. However, it's actually pretty well set up for overnight travel if you're willing to sit in the seat. They have seats that recline. They're actually fairly comfortable. It's certainly quite a reasonable option if you're short on cash, and is a really interesting trip. Again, it's slow, but it winds all the way from Churchill or from Winnipeg, weirdly through Saskatchewan, back into Manitoba, and then finally terminates at the station in Churchill. Prerequisites for the course are pretty simple. They're just 6 credits and registration in biology or related program. It's also permission of the instructor. I'm the instructor. And I also do make exceptions to these rules. We occasionally get a student who's in anthropology or some discipline like this who really wants to see the area, and that certainly will count. It's recommended you have some kind of statistics course. We don't really have time to teach statistics during the course, but we need some kind of basic familiarity so you can actually handle the data used that you collect during the course. Admission is not directly through ACORN because it's a permission of the instructor course, because there are a few extra requirements. It's a simple process, but you need to apply through a web page that we set up. When you apply, I want you to send me your CV, your transcript, and a short paragraph explaining why you want to take the course. The reason for this is there are a couple of reasons. One is that I sort of like to know what you want to get out of the course, because if there's something you're really interested in, potentially it's something that we can actually go and look for. So, for example, we have had students who have been total plant geeks in the past. We wind up actually trying to find stuff for them. It also gives me an idea if you've got some idea of what you're getting into, because believe it or not, we occasionally get students who clearly have no idea where Northern Canada is. And I sort of want to know before you head out that you've at least thought about what you're getting into. I actually once had a student ask if they can go home on weekends. Applications are now open. The web page is there. It's updated. Okay. The links are near the bottom of the page. You can take this course either as a U of T student, and that means all 3 U of T campuses, or if you're coming from another university, you can also enroll. If you come from another university, you'll need to get a letter of permission. We can give you advice about that. It's actually pretty routine. But when you go to the enrollment page, there are 2 different links depending on whether you're from within U of T or outside U of T, because the process is a bit different. If you're accepted, there'll be a few additional waivers and things you'll have to sign. And at that point, you'll be billed for the field station costs. So of course, we don't bill people unless we know they're actually going to be admitted to the course. It's a pretty small course. Maximum enrollment is 10, partly for safety reasons. So some years it's been completely full, some years it hasn't. Okay. Finally, a few contacts. If you want more details, please go ahead and contact me. Again, I'm here at UTM. Best way to find me is email. There's also information on my webpage. So I've got additional information on the course there. For registration questions, ask Stephanie Dorego in biology. I handle basically the delivery of the course, the mechanics of the course. I can give advice of the course. But for advice about how to register, or if you have problems, Stephanie is the person to actually talk to. So there's the boring stuff. So I'm going to finish off with just a few photos of the kind of thing we really do see on the course. I've been going up here off and on since 1984. And one of the reasons I do it is just I really like it. I find it a really interesting place. It's really an experience. I will say all Canadians should go to Northern Canada at some point. So what most of the country is like, most of us never even visit. So what are you going to see if you visit? Well, here's the kind of road we're using. That's coastal tundra out near the edge of the bay. The research station, the CNSC, is sort of a weird place. I'll tell you more about it on the course. It was originally created as an experimental rocket launch site. So first the Americans and then Canadians used it to launch more than 3,000 probe rockets into mostly the Aurora Borealis in order to study it. So the site is littered with things like these launch buildings. It's got a definitely kind of surreal atmosphere when you're there. And in fact, they do get auroras. You get auroras on most clear nights. Clear is a catch. There are a lot of cloudy nights. My advice is any night when it's clear, get out there and look. We're actually right at the peak for the auroral cycle right now, so it's a good time to go up. Another shot of coastal tundra. This is autumn in the Arctic. The red stuff in the foreground is bearberry. It's actually fall colors now. This is what it looks like by the end of the course. And then here's just a few kilometers away south of the tree line. So here's northern boreal forest. Really different environment, mostly white spruce and tamarack. Ground cover is a really thick layer of lichen and moss. Again, very different environment, different flora, different fauna. And again, we'll spend time in both kinds of areas while we're there. It's a permafrost area. These are permafrost features. These are called pulses. If you look in the foreground, this is actually a low hill. It's maybe about 1 meter high, extending off into the background. It's got a permafrost core. It's called a pulsa. These develop in areas of organic sediment, organic soil. There's not a rock in this photo. Everything you're looking here is organic. It's just mosses and lichens on top of an ice layer. Some of the plants, this is cotton grass, Areophorum. This is an iconic Arctic plant, also a really important goose food. Hedocera McKenzii. I don't think it has a common name. It's a really common legume up there. We see tons of eagles. These are snow geese. These are an Arctic nesting goose. I've worked with these a lot in my career. We're actually working with them again this year. They don't nest at the study center, but they nest close to there. And most years we see dispersing groups of adults and juveniles by the end of the course wandering through. There's an Arctic fox. Both Arctic and red foxes have dens around the study center. They're currently engaged in sort of a low-level war. Like they like to occupy each other's dens and this kind of thing. So some years we see lots, some years we see hardly any. It depends where there's a den. Last year, I don't think we saw one Arctic fox. The year before, we saw like half a dozen of them around the study center. If you know these animals, they're snow white in winter, but in summer they have these dark coats and can actually be sort of hard to see. There's their enemy, red fox. These also live all around the study center. We usually see them. They like digging up our experiments, so we've got mixed feelings about them. Pacific loon, these are what they used to call Arctic loons. This is the common loon, and it's very common in the region. If you know loons from Northern Ontario, that's the southern loon. These are the northern ones. Willow ptarmigan, the chicken of the north. Boy, in the spring, you cannot miss these things. They are big, they are noisy, they are everywhere, and they're dumb as rocks. In late summer, they've got families, and they're much harder to find, but usually we can find willow ptarmigan hanging out near the study center. Beluga whales, when I say there are a lot of whales in the river, I mean it. Hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of whales in the river mouth in late summer. This is just flying over in a helicopter in August, I think. But if you do go on a kayak trip or a whale tour, this is what you're going through. Hudsonian godwit. This is an endangered shorebird. There only are about 70,000 of them in the world. They nest mostly along the tree line from about Churchill up into Alaska. This is actually a major center for them. If you're a birder, this is a really exciting bird. They're a shorebird, a sandpiper. They never look comfortable in trees, but. And finally, these guys, and I'll mention to you again, this is not a wildlife tour. We hope to see them. There's a good chance you will. But it's not like a guarantee. On the other hand, this actually walked in front of the van a couple of years ago. We were driving down the coast road. This is way closer than I would approach a bear voluntarily, even in a vehicle. But it came out of the ditch beside us. I wound up backing up down the road to get away from it. We had this whole van full of excited students snapping photos while I'm creeping away from this bear. That's all I've really got to say. I really encourage you, if you want an unusual experience, to take the course. Again, what we mostly teach is natural history and biology. Like I say, it's an environment that few, if any of you, are likely to have visited before. It's one of the most forgiving ways to visit the tundra. Compared to a lot of destinations, it's an easy site to go. We've done the course for years. And again, the reason I really do it is I enjoy it. And if you take the course, I hope you learn a lot, but I hope you enjoy it as well. If you have any questions, I'm done talking now, but I'm happy to ask questions or to answer questions for people in the room. Or if you're out there in the ether, you can either turn on your microphone and just ask, or type it in the chat bubble and I'll see if I can answer your question for you. Okay, so any questions?
When I tried to look at the stuff for Calm Air,
Yeah.
I noticed there was no available flights around like the months we were there.
Yeah, that's because they don't have their summer schedule up.
Okay.
They're still working on their winter schedule.
But
Yeah.
like,
They also offer a lot more flights in the summer. So you probably only saw a couple of flights a week, and
yeah.
the time you're going up, there'll be several. I think they do flights on average, a flight a day through later in the summer. So try again in a
Yeah.
in a month. Yeah, I got a question about whether the course is going to be rerun. I'm afraid it's not on the cards. When we set this course up, this is the fourth time I've done this course. And when we set it up, the idea is it would rotate between faculty. So this is my last chance at it. If you don't have the prerequisites, I would recommend applying anyway. Like I say, it's permission of the instructor, and I can potentially make exceptions. So if you're interested, talk to me and don't let a lack of prerequisites necessarily stop you. By the way, I should repeat the question I got earlier. I was asked about the fact that the Comair doesn't have any flights posted yet. That's just because it's the winter schedule and it's Comair. They'll be going on the summer schedule in another couple of months, and at that point, they'll have flights. Yeah, yeah.
Everyone of the same gender in the same room, or is it two people in a room?
They have standard rooms that are small but reasonably comfortable. The question was about sleeping arrangements. There are 4 bunk beds in a room. Yeah, they do segregate you by gender. So when you apply to the study center, there actually is a form you have to fill out that where they ask about things like dietary restrictions, which they will accommodate. And one thing they ask is gender, and that's why. It's because they try to group people together. If you're lucky, you might wind up in a room with fewer people. But we expect 4 people per room.
I know that students who have taken it loved it. It probably doesn't help much, but I've heard great things from students who are graduate students now. And is Vicky TAing?
We don't know who's to be taking it yet because they haven't posted the TA ads. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Grades, while we're doing the research of the collection part of it.
Yeah.
Are there alternative,
Yeah.
data collection methods, or will that be?
The question is, what do we do if it rains? And the answer is it depends. You should bring rain gear and be prepared to go out in the rain, but we're not crazy about it. So if it's absolutely awful weather, we'll probably try to do something else instead. So sometimes I'll give an extra lecture that day, or we'll go into town or something like that. But you're right. I mean, there are occasions when it's raining and we just have to go out and can't avoid it. But like I say, we try to keep reasonably comfortable if we can. It can be pretty cool too. Frankly, the days that are the worst are, hope you don't get any 30-degree days, because yeah, we had to hit 32 a couple of years ago. And the again, you really have not seen mosquitoes until you see that happen. I'd rather have it raining than have it 30 degrees. We actually went swimming in Hudson Bay a couple of years ago. Yeah. There's a town beach which has more beware of bear signs than you could possibly imagine. But actually, it's not a bad place to swim on a hot day. Yeah, I'd bring a bathing suit. People also swim in the in Ramsey Lake, which actually is also our water supply. And there are a couple of creeks where people swim. Again, there has to be somebody with a shotgun there while you're swimming, so it's not quite as relaxing as you might think. Is there ptarmigan hunting in the area? Oh yeah. Churchill's largely a hunting fishing community. And again, it's largely indigenous. So people hunt ptarmigan, people hunt caribou, people hunt geese. Probably geese and caribou are the two really big ones. But no, it's a real hunting community. I actually came back last year with a big piece of caribou and a bunch of goose breasts that somebody gave me. So yeah. There's no commercial fishing in the river at the moment. There, but there's a big Arctic char fishery in Rankin Inlet as well, which is the next major, well, I guess Arviat's the next major town to the north. Rankin's the town after that. So there are commercial fisheries in the area too. Mhm. Any other questions? Yeah,
Safety, because
Yeah.
one thing my parents are worried about
Mhm.
is in terms of the safety of like getting to Churchill.
yeah.
So, like,
Mhm.
is there anything that could go wrong, or?
Oh, I probably can give you a list. But no, it's pretty safe getting to Churchill. Like I say, I usually fly to Winnipeg at Air Canada, and then Comair is not a small airline. They run 737s in some routes. So forget what they're running up there now. It's like a Bombardier, I think. But no, it's just a small regional airline. There's nothing special about it.
So like. In terms of like taking to connecting flights.
Yeah.
There's just like, it's just normal airline risk. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I've just asked about problems with connecting. The best thing to do is if you're admitted to the course, talk to me. I try to leave, like I say, a lot of space between connecting flights. Depending on the schedule that year, we can't always make it in one day. Sometimes we have to stay in church in Winnipeg overnight. We've stayed in the airport. There are also hotels right at the airport. It's more likely to be a problem on the way back. Yeah, Comair is often late, and it's hard to object to the reason. And the reason is that because they go really remote places, if there's some kind of delay for someone arriving on the plane, they'll wait for them.
Yeah,
So occasionally they'll be in Rankin Inlet or somewhere and someone's still out in the land and they'll wait until they arrive, and then that pushes the whole
oh, yeah.
schedule back. So usually if they're late, it's because there was some kind of delay like that somewhere along the route.
Okay.
But no, there really are no special hazards getting up there. There are hazards on site. I mean, you have to really do what we say because of the bear issue. But like I say, I've been working up there for more than 40 years, and we've never had a serious injury in that time or anything like that. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Once we get to Churchill, there's gonna be a meeting spot for everyone to gather, and then we go to the study site.
Yeah, once you get to Churchill, the way that it works is that there'll be a form you fill out and send to the study center once you're accepted, and that will list your arrival time and the flight. It is critical you do that because then there will be somebody at the airport to meet you. If you don't do that, then there'll be nobody at the airport, and that's bad. So yeah, the part of the service is the study center will come and pick you up. Actually, probably it'll be me that comes and picks you up, but we have to know when you're arriving. Same thing with the train. The train actually terminates right in the middle of town, but we still need to know which train you're coming on so that we can be there to pick you up.
So we would need to send a time for when we're gonna be coming?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a simple form, but like I say, if you're accepted in the course, there'll be a form from the study center that is going to ask whether you've got food allergies, whether there are any serious health issues, again, gender, arrival time. Yeah, those are the main things. They're fairly good at accommodating dietary issues too. I mean, there always are vegetarian options. They can do kosher or halal, but don't push it too far. Um, if you have a really weird set of dietary preferences or I shouldn't say preferences. If you have a real weird set of dietary requirements, you might have to be responsible for them on your own, but normal things like allergies, they can accommodate. I one year had an applicant who claimed to be allergic to like everything. She had a list of something like 20 things that she couldn't eat. And
Like that.
there are, but the reality is that can be really hard to accommodate if that's the case. And if there is something like that, the study center might ask you to be responsible for your own food. I've never had it happen, but it's a small town. They can only push things so far. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm just in the question period now, so stick around for a couple of minutes. Questions will probably run out, and then I can run through the stuff quickly with you again. Okay, yeah. Yeah. You know, one thing I'll emphasize, because I've had this conversation even with faculty, is Churchill's a town. There's a school, people live there, people are pushing babies around in strollers. Like I say, by Arctic standards, it's a forgiving place to go. So um, at the same time, they do get polar bears walking down the middle of the street. Um, so it's a different experience that you're going to get down here. Mm. Any other questions? there's anything else online, ask it now, because we're going to probably terminate the session very shortly. We will make the recorded version available on the biology website. There's a course, or there's a web page devoted to the course. Oh, good. Okay. So it's linked in the chat. We'll post this recording there. And again, if you go to my own research website, there is some additional information. If you do enroll in the course, or in fact, if you want to see the material before you enroll, we will give you a couple of information sheets that have a lot of detail about what to bring, what to expect. I haven't distributed them yet because I haven't updated them for this year, but if you're really keen, let me know and I'll send you last year's. Yes, there is a syllabus. If you want it, just email me. Again, it's not been updated for this year, but it's not going to change very much. And again, the basic strategy will be the same. Like I say, the first half of the course, we basically visit as many sites as we can. The second half is largely devoted to you getting a project running, although even then we will continue to visit sites and look at things as as they're available. Okay. We haven't had a question online for a while, so I think we can probably cut it now. Again, don't hesitate to contact me with more questions. And remember, enrollment is now open. Okay. Oh, yes, you're welcome.